In this week's video, I take you to Tarnowskie Góry. Now, this is a pretty cool place actually in the Silesian region of Poland. The area is particularly famous because of silver, so I think that's how this area became prosperous, but we'll explore that in the video. We're going to go deep underground into the silver mines. We're going to take the longest, well, one of the longest underground boat rides in Europe, and we're going to explore the town, go to the museums, the churches, and I think there'll be a castle or palace in there as well. So very happy to bring you this site. I managed to hop on a Polska tours session. It's all in Polish, but don't worry, this video will be in English for you. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. With this channel, I travel across the country, I bring you the culture, and I show you just how amazing Poland is. So I invite you on my journey. If you want to see more, I have Facebook and Instagram profiles, which you will find links to in the description below. And if you want to really help out, you can turn to my Patreon or Patronite accounts, again in the description. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Do zobaczenia. So Tarnowskie Góry is in the Silesian voivodeship, so pretty much like central South Poland. From Warsaw, it's maybe not the most accessible. I think you have to switch a couple of trains. There are quite a lot of sites kind of within the city and in the outskirts. So I went with a group called Polska Tours for this, and luckily they had a bus and were able to drive around. So if you're going there on your own, it will require an awful lot of walking. I'm not sure what the local public transport is like, but anyway, it was a lovely place to visit, and I was there a couple of times in, I think, December and January, so maybe slightly more wintry scenes. As you can see from figures like this, the town is very much centered around mining, and we're going to go to the mine shortly. It has roughly 60,000 inhabitants, and it's, fun fact, it is the largest city in Poland which has a mayor, or in which a mayor is elected. The name of the city comes from the village of Tarnowice, and the word Góry, which in Old Polish meant mines. These days you would think of Góry as being kind of a mountain, but yeah, back in the day it meant mines. So yeah, the history of the city is very closely linked to the extraction of silver, lead and zinc ores. This is the old town, and you see some rather old tenement houses. This is the rather dramatic city hall, which dates back to 1898, which was actually built on the site of the district court, which was previously a mining school, and it's done in the neo-Renaissance style. And it was opened by Count Guido Henkel von Donnersmarck, one of the most influential people in Europe at that time. So you see a number of monuments, and they're all, funnily enough, to do with mining. And we're going to touch upon a bit of the history. So it's actually, there's a bit of a legend with Tarnowskie Góry. That basically you had this peasant Rybka who was ploughing his field, and he encountered a chunk of silver ore in 1490. And that's the basic legend, but there's a more fun one. So from Alfred Hein, who was a German writer born in Bitton, he writes that during one of his nights in the forest, the peasant Rybka was supposed to have seen dwarves, miners with silver beards, dancing around a spruce, digging up the ground from which silver treasures shone. Rybka fell asleep before taking any action, but soon he began digging in search of treasures in the place where he had seen the dwarves, unfortunately without success. Sometime later, his 3 cows fell into a swamp near the spruce in a clearing,
when he pulled them out, he saw that the animals' horns were all silver. I always like it when I can find a nice little legend. Oh, this is the Church of the Saviour, also in the Market Square. This dates back to 1780. And yeah, so it's a fairly old church, fairly beautiful inside. We had this big lecture in there when we were there, which was all in Polish, which reminds me that, yeah, I am doing Polish lessons again now, but I still have a fair bit of a go. So going back to the history, you had Jan II, Duke of Opola and Racibórz, who created the Act of Mining Freedom in 1526. And basically around this, the city soon developed around mining, with trades and crafts also developing intensely. Oh, and this church here, Church of Peter and Paul, is from 1529, so pretty old and impressive. We didn't get inside this one. So the tenement houses that you saw in the town centre, a lot of them date back to the second half of the 16th and the 17th centuries. So they're pretty old. It was the largest centre of ore mining in the mid-16th century in Silesia, though it didn't get city rights until 1562, and before that it was basically subject to Bytom, which is another city nearby, which I'll need to visit one day. It suffered pretty heavily in the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648, and on top of that it had a plague in 1676, and I think there was some fire around 1700 as well. So it had a whole series of disasters which crippled it a bit. The city ended up passing from Austria to Prussia in 1742 due to the Silesian Wars. The first steam engine on the European continent was introduced from England in 1788, and this was used to drain water from the mines, which we're getting to now. So let's talk a bit about the mining centre, which you could say is the main attraction. And I've been to a few mines in Poland. I have a few more on my list, and this was one of the cooler ones to visit. So actually you have about 28 different kind of mines and adits and things around the area. So a few of them link up. And so this is the Tarnowskie Góry lead, silver and zinc mine, and the underground water management system which goes with it. The common name of a group of post-industrial monuments associated with the mining of non-ferrous metal ores from the period between the 18th and the 20th centuries. And it was actually added to the UNESCO World Heritage Site list in 2017. So after centuries of lead, silver and zinc ore extraction, a huge system of workings, galleries, chambers, shafts and drainage tunnels remained. The underground corridors stretch under Tarnowskie Góry for over 150 kilometres. The whole is a unique technical complex, a masterpiece of underground hydraulic engineering. So the Angel Shaft, where we entered, is a 43-metre deep shaft built from 1789 and completed 9 years later for the needs of the Frederick mine. Currently it is a downhill shaft, a historic silver mine connected underground with two other shafts by a tourist route marked between them, opened in 1976, and you can see we're following the tourist route now. I loved that there was all this like fungi growing where the water is dripping through. I'd not really seen that in a cave system before, so that was pretty cool. It was, I think we were down there for at least an hour walking through these corridors, and it was pretty fun, actually. I like, I don't know if I'm part dwarf, but I do love to be underground, and I find these kind of rock tunnels to be quite fascinating. This was a kind of like underground sort of waterfall. Unfortunately, it doesn't really look as nice in the video as it did in person, but I just thought it was, quite beautiful and quite, picturesque. And yeah, so we had to wear our hard hats. We were following the guide. He was stopping and saying all of this stuff in Polish about the mines as we were going along. We saw some pretty dramatic, scenes here. I think this is some more fungus or something like that. Some of the tunnels were pretty low, so we had to duck down. I think this water is supposed to be somewhat magical. Of course, when I'm given magical water, I always drink it without question, just in case. And yeah, we encountered this little shrine here close towards the end. So before we exit the mine, let me continue with the history. So in 1803, the first mining school was opened. The Adit Frederick was dug, and there were major developments of the city. The first railway line to Opola was established, and the city actually only came to Poland in 1922. In 1939, there was the Nazi occupation, and in 1945, the Red Army occupies the city. So this is called the Black Trout Adit, and I think it actually goes on for about 17 kilometers underground. So it's one of the longest in Europe. So it's the longest and deepest adit in the history of mining in Tarnowskie Góry, built in the years 1821 to 1834. Since its opening, it has effectively drained water by gravity from the entire underground area. Water flowing out of the adit is discharged through a water channel to the Drama River. And so when you visit this, you're basically put on a kind of boat which is rocking a lot from side to side, with the guide kind of giving you a bit of history as you go along. I think you travel something like 600 meters on this boat, and it is, one of the longest underground waterways in Europe for this kind of ride. So it was something a bit novel. I haven't done one of these underground water rides before. I know there are a few in Poland. There's another notable one in Zabrze, I think, which I need to get to at some point. A lot of them seem to be in Silesia. But I know there was a lot of mining done in Lower Silesia as well. But haven't encountered this so much in Lower Silesia. Though we have been to a couple of mines there now. But yeah, of course you have your souvenir stands. You can't get away from that. I always end up buying a few bits and pieces. So now we're going to move away from the mines, and we're going to go to Stare Tarnowskie, which is the old city, basically. So here is St. Martin's Church, which the construction actually began at the end of the 14th century. And there was a Gothic-style tower which was built in 1400. So it's very old. In 1707, there was a Baroque reconstruction which widened the presbytery and the sacristy, and a brick wall was established. The oldest elements of the building now date back to the 15th century, so you have some doors and I think like a font behind those. And as with most churches in Poland, not on the outside, you can tell it has a different feel to most churches. It looks a lot older. And inside, you can see there's been a lot of reconstruction, because there's no way these colours would be quite so vibrant. So it did have a strong aura to it, I would say. It was really interesting to visit there and really beautiful. But across the road, they built another St. Martin's Church. And this was built 1899 to 1902. And it was basically built because the previous church was too small for the local congregation. So, yeah, there was a lot of need here. And, yeah, this one, there was some kind of service going on, so I didn't want to interfere too much, but it was pretty cool. So, lastly, we're going to move on to the castle. I think there are actually maybe 2 or 3 castles in the area, but one of them is like a residence now. It doesn't really look like a castle. I think the other is like a pile of ruins. So this is the main castle to see in Tarnowskie Góry. Yeah, it's as I say, part of the old city. So we started off in this room, which now serves as the canteen or the restaurant. So we had a bit to eat here, and the main castle itself is here, and it's actually massively restored, you can say. So it was originally built in sort of 1520 to 1570, and before that there was a kind of a knight stronghold in the vicinity, which I think this basically replaced. So it's a Renaissance style castle, which we believe was founded by the Władków family, or Piotr Wrochem. What you see now is a renovation done around the 2000 to 2010 by Rainer and Christina Smoloj. So the original seat of the Tarnowice hereditary lords was probably like an archaeologically incompletely explored conical stronghold in Stare Tarnowice. How long it was used is unknown. It is certain, however, that some hereditary lords combining the Tarnowice and Repsa estates resided in their seat located in Repti. The situation changed in the second half of the 15th century when Repti, together with Tarnowice, came into the possession of the Wrochem family, originating from the Duchy of Bytom. The documented genealogy of the family begins at the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries with Caspar Wrochem, whose relative was Piotr Wrochem, who is attributed as being the builder of the castle. The Wrochem family gained significant benefits from the mining activities conducted in these areas, so much so that they became a significant wealthy family. On the initiative of the aforementioned Peter Wrochem, a Renaissance castle was built and preserved to this day. It is one of the oldest and most valuable buildings in the Silesian region. So it was pretty cool to visit. I've seen a lot of castles in Poland now, as you can see by my playlist, no doubt. It's one of these places, like everything, that changed hands many, many times between different families. So, yeah, just looking at, like, I have a whole webpage just full of basically, it went to this family, then it went to this family, and then it went to that one. But, I think this is like the Pope's chair or something. It was pretty cool to explore. I think we were probably wandering around the interior for maybe an hour and a half or so. And here we saw some pretty cool moving kind of dioramas. And it has a lot of nice furniture, like a lot of these castles. Can't really give you the dates on the furniture. I think it's probably more like 19th century, but maybe some of the pieces are a bit older. You have a nice garden, which would probably look much nicer in the summer, but you get what you can from these sites at the time of year. But overall, I really enjoyed my visiting Tarnowskie Góry. It was definitely worthwhile, and I recommend you do the same.